And so I'm going to start this off today by sharing some information that may actually be connected to what I just discussed in terms of potential recharacterization. You know, when I was in Chicago in 2016, before I came to Texas, I had this very interesting situation going on. At the time, I had this bike. I was on the streets, but I had a bike, and it was very, very old. It was in bad disrepair. I'd gotten it through a donation. And I'm walking around, and there was, right there in the middle of the sidewalk, a 10-speed bike. It wasn't new. It was one of those bikes with the thin tires. It was kind of like a racing bike. Brand new 10-speed bike right next to a bus stop. And there was nobody around, there was no buildings around, and it was standing up on the kickstand. It wasn't locked to anything. There was just a bus stop, and it wasn't as if it was put there and locked and then somebody went into the building and were just in there for a second so they didn't lock it up. There's no chain on it, no lock on it. And I looked at it, and something said, "Take it." I said, "What? It's yours, take it." And I was like, well, who would just leave a 10-speed bike like this right out in the middle of the sidewalk? It's at a bus stop. There's a bus stop, there's a little pavilion, a sign with a bus stop. It's possible, for instance, that somebody was boarding the bus and meant to put the bike on the front of the bus, and for whatever reason got on the bus and just forgot to put their bike on the bus with them. Things like this happen. But there was no bus around. There was no person around. There was just a bike right there in the middle of the sidewalk. So I traded the bikes. I left my bike, the one I had, and I took the bike that was right there. I rode it around for the rest of the time I was in Chicago. It was a fantastic bike. I had a great time with it. It rode very well. I used to commute in order to sleep indoors at night. There was not a way for me to do it in the city of Chicago at the time, so I had to go elsewhere in order to actually find indoor accommodations overnight. And it was important because the process they had in the suburbs of Chicago at the time were that you only got to sleep indoors one night a week in the same place. Every night it was a different place. So if you were homeless, you had to rotate from place to place to place, and nobody provided you with transportation. Somehow you had to figure out the transportation between each of the sites yourself. So it was very convenient for me to have this bike, especially because it also provided me a means by which to get to the city where I was actually doing things, including research, including what I was hoping was going to be able to get me a job and or recover what had been stolen from me, including my passport, so that I could actually move on to what I had intended to do, which was not to be homeless and on the street, right? Now, when I left Chicago, I ended up giving the bike to other people that were homeless. There was a couple, actually, and I knew I was leaving, so I gave them the bike. I had hoped that it would do well for them. Well, lo and behold, now it's a different situation. For 5 years since I first became homeless in Chicago in a specific way, right? 4 years since I've been in Texas. I purchased my own bike, purchased the lock, got the tires and the brakes redone, had it locked up inside the courtyard of the private residence, and somehow somebody gets inside the courtyard of the private residence, cuts the cable, and takes my bike. Not quite the same, but there's this thing they have in Texas. When I would ride that bike around, something kept telling me, "You're Apache. You're Apache." What? "You're indigenous." What? Me? I'm indigenous? I may or may not have thought this, but to be honest with you, if I'm Native American, I'm not Apache. Let's put it that way. That's not where my people come from. But they kept saying, "You're Apache, you're Apache. You've got the spirit." What's the spirit? Well, the spirit is if you see it and you like it, take it. What? No, you'd be riding your bike around Chicago. You'd be riding your bike around the suburbs. And then there would be something that wasn't appropriately secured at the moment. I'll give you an example. One day I'm coming back from the suburbs to Chicago. It's early in the morning. I'm riding down the street, and there's this car that's parked. Brand new car. Looks like a sedan of, so I think it might have been a foreign German car. Somebody had gotten out, and when they got out, they dropped their keys. Their keys were literally on the ground right next to the driver's side door of the car. And I'm riding my bike. And someone's like, take it. What? Take the car. The keys are right there. Take the car. See, that was supposed to be the spirit. That's what made me Apache. I did not know that Apache was an oil company in Texas. I did not know that Apache was a gas and oil company based out of this area. I didn't know that at the time. But I do know that within a month of getting that bike, I was on site in Texas. Is this in any way connected to what was happening with the CDL licensing scam in Illinois? The understanding that it was mostly Mexicans that were somehow being given licenses that were illegal for them to have when it came to operating commercial vehicles. That's where I'm going to leave it for today. By the way, I'm not Apache, just so you know. I didn't steal anybody's transportation. But since I've been in Texas, by and large, I have not been in a situation where I've been allowed to have income or assistance with transportation, using public transportation. I'm somehow remarkably accurate at being on site in connection with major transfers of pension benefits associated with public transit workers. And I'm also very accurate with making very important benchmarks about being on site when it comes to issuances of municipal bonds associated with transportation, including, not exclusively, in the state of Texas. But by and large, when it comes to meeting my own transportation needs, for some reason, my specific role in the economy is to not be able to get my own transportation needs met. And everything else I could access is hinged on that. We're going to get to this more, but this is all I'm going to do for today. I would like to discuss tax increment financing and how tax increment financing may or may not be connected to what is called an opportunity zone. But we're going to have to get to that later. There are more rudimentary needs that need to be met today.